Blessed love and peace. Blessed love and peace. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allah wabha. 道可道非常道，名可名非常名。Já Rastafari. Deus noster qui es in cielo sanctificato nomen tuum. Vaheguru Salam. Baruch atah Elohim Eloheinu melech haolam shekol nihiyah b'divaru. Amen. Kyrie eleison. Sivamas tu savajagatahe. Saber sata bhavantu sukhitata. Vagabia. Makwaba upendo na amani. Fikiri nesalam. Chinta dam peramian. Libova me woman jaga. Ubuntu shabona fikitkum. Sheshe, como se nira, domo arigato, pilama yellow waka toka, toka dokshangu, go managat. God, we thank you for always that you bless us. Ata jamia yatafanami. Ado, aho, om shanti, 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 amen. This is an addendum to the joint I recorded earlier. Again, there's a lot to share. Ho, the battery is on low. We'll see how much we got. We forget the red light. We might highlight. No, I'm not gonna joke jokes like that. It's too late to be joking. All right, focus. Basics. First thing, black, white. I addressed the notion of sellout, and that's kind of like towards the middle population, the middle masses of society, because that's who cares about popular culture. That's who's knowledgeable about popular culture. That's who pays some kind of mind to popular culture. This one we're addressing particularly to the outer limits of particularly the black-white experience, and rather than talk about any detractions or criticisms, I'm, God willing, I will, inshallah, B'ezrat Hashem, God willing, focus on positive suggestion, invitation, constructive. At the risk of being somewhat, well, whatever, we're gonna leave alone the disclaimers and whatever else, and just again focus on the basics and priority. So, the invitation, the humble recommendation for kinfolk, particularly those who intend to stay on this land for this generation and for future generations, who teach their children to stay in this land, who have some sense of pride and ownership even on this land. What we humbly suggest, what we humbly invite kinfolk to do first is to strengthen knowledge of self beyond the past 200 years, to delve into the roots, because most kinfolk who have this mentality, and don't speak that derogatory, I'm just saying that's this mindset, are conservative and don't care too much about multiculturalism, kumbaya, DEI, or whatever kinfolk call it these days. But in being conservative, there's an increasing value of family, increasing value of roots, rootedness, and increasing knowledge of the importance of rootedness. And with that knowledge, there's the awareness that in weathering the storms, there is a necessity of having depth within our roots. So when we talk about civilization, additionally, that depth of roots is knowledge of self, knowledge of our ancestry, knowledge of the languages our ancestors speak, the stories, and further. Whether that's ethnic based, whether that's religious based, or otherwise, having those roots. And it needs to go beyond the past 200 years. It needs to go back to ancestral lands. That's the necessity of viability in globalization today. So, however kinfolk find that way of bridging the narrative from the experience of this land over the past 200 years back into congruence with the ancestral narrative. That is a necessity. If kinfolk don't want to repatriate, whether it's back to Africa, back to Europe, or whatever else, that's understandable. And it's unrealistic to presume or to perceive everybody, 99% of the people of this land who are from other places, other lands, to go back to those lands, regardless of whatever the actuality unfolds in the next generation, the next siete generations. There's the expectation of many kinfolk still residing on this land, but it's a matter of being at peace with this land, genuinely, and not forcefully. All right. So, point is basics, roots, learning one's ancestry, heritage. It's not most likely going to come from mainstream schools at this moment, so it requires some further initiative. Language, learning ancestral language, just being literate within that. It creates a cognitive sanctuary and strength. Independence, autonomy, away from the imperialism. Reconnecting with nature and cultivating a narrative of peaceful harmony with nature, not one of dominance, not one of conquest, not one of ownership, because each one of those methodologies, each one of those pretenses is extremely susceptible to being taken over by something else stronger and greater. And that leads to a culture of fear and inferiority that overcompensates to defend against that looming threat of somebody else conquering and claiming ownership and dominion or whatever else. It is a matter of knowing the nature of the land, being at peace with the history of the land before one arrives there, being at peace with the people of the land who are indigenous before one arrives there. That's not kumbaya, that's not political correctness. That's old school respect, not for the sake of popularity, not for the sake of peace even, for the sake of knowing what truth is. Finding that peace. And there's been back and forth. So there's a lot of reconciling about both sides, from the imperial to as well as from the settler to the native as well. I'm finding it difficult to speak on details of the suggestion without referring to the points of criticism. We don't all have to live together. We don't all have to get along and agree. We don't have to all love each other per se. We all don't have to marry each other or otherwise. But we do have to have some kind of respect for each other and know how to work with each other. To have some diplomacy, have some treaties, have some truces, and have narratives, have stories and celebrations that are compatible with those truces and that diplomacy, those treaties. Recognize that the game is beyond government. The game is beyond the earthly. After I recorded the joint earlier this evening, it's 2 a.m. at this moment. Haha, I should be asleep and rejuvenating. I've had 2 cups of coffee today, so here we are. Blah, blah, and it's all my fault. I'm so powerful. After I recorded that joint, when kinfolk, the kind kinfolk, are closing up shop, and I'm walking along the sidewalk, noticing how it slants. Interestingly enough, we don't pay much attention when we're healthy, just going from A to B. But when we're very mindful of each step, when it slopes, maybe at a 20-degree angle, it ain't as easy to walk on. it imbalances the spine and additionally. So interesting. Anyways, as I'm doing that, two sistren emerge from one of the doors, and the two sistren are it's not late. It's 8 p.m. local time. I'm not trying to be all too much information, whatever. But anyways, so two sistren walk out and comfortable, kind of laughing, joking, bright energy. So they communicate acknowledgement of me. I communicate knowledge of the sistren. And um, at some point, the sister kind of stopped and kind of joking and whatever, and I joke back in like manner and like way. And then Sistren say, okay, I say peace and blessings. Sistren provided salutations, and then Sistren said, be safe, haha. So that was opportunity, yay, to say, take courage. And I do. I turn around. It was a copacetic thing. It's no antagonism. I genuinely share it in a genuine way. Take courage. First time I share that with kinfolk. After I communicated the intention of doing that before. First time. And exactly as I say, take courage. There is a police vehicle that goes whoop, whoop, starts flashing its lights, it revs its engine, and peels out exactly where we are. And there's some parked cars immediately on the street next to us, and on the other side of that we don't see until whoop, whoop, flashlights and peels out and makes a left turn. Now, kinfolk gonna be looking at surveillance tapes and stuff. Anyways, the identification of all individuals articulated within this narrative are protected for the purposes of this narrative. Blah, blah. So, anyways, I just continue walking on because we've already exchanged the back and forth with the sistren. But the sistren, as I turn around and continue on, or just say, that was crazy. And then I say, it's beyond crazy. And sistren says, but that was crazy just as you said that. Then you see what happens. You see what they doing. And so we know that trope. And so I invite the conversation, and the sistren invite the conversation to go into the next level of constructiveness. So we address the actuality, and I say, well, we know what the police do. We ain't got to tell you. We ain't got to be told, and this and the other. Exactly, and the sistren start. I and the sistren continue walking at that point together along the sidewalk towards the intersection. And as we walk by, and we're saying that, she just says, "Oh, that's crazy." I say, "It's beyond crazy. We're dealing with earth, hell, and heaven. That's where we're at this moment. So it's not even about." Well, anyways, before we got into all that, so it's beyond crazy. And as we're walking past, we get to the corner, and I say, we already know what the police is doing. We already know what the history is, and additionally. So I'm affirming that shared common experience, that shared frame of reference, and I point to the door, the storefront, exactly where we are, and I say, you already know about Thomas Yaskin. Remember him? And they're like, yeah. And I say, yeah, the brother who got shot up right there by the plainclothes police officer. And they're like, yeah, that's why corner alley. So now I know that they know. They reference the corner alley. It's not there no more. And I say, yeah, we know. They trying to cover it up. It's a taqueria or whatever. So it's part of the cover up and everything else. I mean, the bowling alley wasn't going to do too much business because once somebody gets shot up and it becomes known, like nobody's wants to go there. So I mean, the business was going to go down anyways. But still, it's just intrinsically the part of the cover up. People don't want to acknowledge it and hide away from it or whatever else. So we acknowledge what the actuality is, exactly where we're standing. Kinfolk, blood was spilled right where we were standing. Literally, facts. So yes, we're acknowledging that. However, what I also invite the sistren to recognize is that, so we already know that about the police, and we already know about society. Now that being said, what's also beneficial to recognize is how many demons do you think the police encounter face to face on a regular basis? And immediately the sistren recognize that. They're like, oh, it's crazy, yo, this shit is crazy, da 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 da. So even whilst we're recognizing the hell that black folk and other kinfolk are catching at the hands of the popo, at the same exact time, we also know that the popo are are encountering demons. Literally, facts, demons. Not just in the streets, in the houses, in the field, and further. And we have to acknowledge that and we have to respect that because that's what the game is. And the thing about it is that the police are not the only ones, not even necessarily the major ones, who are soldiering against the demons. Most of the kinfolk who are doing it, you don't even know. And you won't know, you won't see, because it's the nature of it. There are angels and demons that walk this earth at this moment. Whilst I speak, don't sleep too much. So, don't sleep too little. Do what you do. Anyways, the sister immediately recognized that. Now I already started running my mouth. I could see that. The sister was like, okay, that's enough. And went the sister's way. I went my way. But that's the point of it, to recognize like where things are. It's the way things always are. But for anybody who claims to be woke, anybody who claims to be an activist, who claims to like have some kind of like something to say, even something to say about whatever in society and life today, to recognize the realm of what is. And it's way beyond governments, it's way beyond Illuminati. Even when kinfolk are talking about the evilness of like the cults or whatever else, it's heaven and hell and earth. And it's beneficial to recognize that. And police are caught in the middle where everybody else is. And so it's a matter of anybody who claims to care to up the game, to have some literacy about what the conditions are, what the nature of this realm is, what the nature of the seeming conflict is. And then in having a better literacy about the nature, knowing further about what the healing is. We can call it a solution. Ultimately, it's always going to be. It's the nature of this universe. There's always going to be static. There's always going to be atrocities. And there's always going to be love. And so it's a matter of understanding that. And there's always going to be, what up, flying squirrel, hee hee hee. Flying squirrels, yo, they... Anyway, all right. Flying squirrels, though, serious. Like, if you look at, you can't even talk about like a domesticated bear, because if you see a domesticated bear, you gotta, and if you love animals, you love life, you just gotta be like, oh, what they do to you? Oh, it's like, even if it's not a cage, it's a cage. You see a domesticated lion, even in the open, just like doing what a handler wants or whatever. Maybe when you see a domesticated dog, maybe similar. But anyways, my point was about to be like, if you see like the majesty and like a huge animal, that's just like maxing and relaxing. You know what that energy is. You know what that nature of that charisma is. Like, yo, flying squirrels got that. Every animal got it. You can look at an ant. If you look at an ant proper, you can see the magnetism in just one little ant. Black ant, brown ant, red ant. Go. Anyways, all right, back to the topic. Heaven, hell, earth. That's what it is. Knowing the nature of it and finding our place within it. What our talent is to provide healing. Now, that being said, I just put out some peanuts. So the flying squirrels hear that. I'm not trying to divulge all the secrets either, so anyway, all right. One other thing about heaven, hell, and earth, the nature at this moment. One of the lessons, one of the teachings, part of the guidance is not to get mad, not to get angry, not to point fingers, blame even, not to punish even, to be patient, to study, to investigate, to be honest. That's the guidance. And there are techniques to strengthen those skill sets. There's techniques to build patience, to build calmness, not to jump to conclusions, not to jump to hostilities, even in the mind, not to jump to anger. Meditation, prayer, study, conversations, singing, making puja. Those are some of the techniques for cultivating that patient perseverance. The point I'm getting to is this. When we do that and we get some skills in that, even though we get skills and get nicer with it, we get charged with further responsibilities, and we learn further about the nasty, and it gets further challenging. When we level up, it becomes further difficult. So we're not at kindergarten at that point. We're at grade 3, we're at grade 5, and the maths get further complex. Speaking very British there. And this is what I'm describing as part of those maths of life. Things that seem to be a certain way. Somebody looks like they're lying. Somebody looks like they're being up to no good. Somebody looks like they're being disrespectful. Be patient. There's a purpose to it. Even it may be their intentional purpose, or it might be an unintentional purpose. God is working through the kinfolk. Even when kinfolk look like they're possessed by demons, by the devil, by Shaitan, by Mara, by Lucifer, God is still at work. So even in that scenario, when it seems just so blatantly obvious, be careful, be mindful, be honest. An important part of cultivating that patience, that patient perseverance, is also a very modest lifestyle. Not being happy and not even being satisfied, being at peace with a very modest materiality. Because the least amount required to keep us genuinely comfortable, the further empowered we are, because the less dependent we are on other things. When we require a lot of materiality to keep us just basically comfortable, to keep us like just calm, if we require a lot of food, a lot of comfort foods, a lot of clothing comforts, if we require a lot of like residential space comforts, when we require vehicle comforts or whatever else, we're dependent upon all those things that are providing that. And that means that we are influenced significantly. We just got the red light, the warning about battery. We're dependent upon whoever's providing that, their politics, their prejudices, their hatreds, their hostilities, their atrocities, and additionally. And that skews how honest we are and how we're able to address whatever injustices we observe in life. Because eventually, when we address those injustices, we're going to hit the kinfolk who are providing us with those things that we perceive a need for, to be satisfied, to be comfortable in life. When that level is low, when we're satisfied with just the basics, it strengthens our ability to address the injustices. Not lambast and like have vitriol, but just genuinely address the injustices and facilitate healing and fairness, increase fairness within this realm, within this samsara, this material universe. So that's a huge part of being honest and patiently persevering amidst the challenges of life. Modest lifestyle. Ain't nobody perfect. Ain't nobody better than another person one way or the other. But for those who have an inclination for that kind of trod in this life, that's part of the guidance. So going back to the notion of calling things out, seeing things that seem blatantly obvious, recognizing God is at work. Elohim, Allah, Tao, Brahman, Wankantanka, great mystery, Creator is at work. And rather than just saying, oh, that's the devil right there, and then feeling a green light to just unload on even the devil, blatant, somebody just caught straight up committing an atrocity, red-handed. That's not the green light to unload. Yes, stand up as much as possible, as prudently as possible, with discipline, with moderation, even with love and respect for the person committing the atrocity, the most heinous of atrocities. Love and respect. Stand up, hem them up, lock them up indefinitely with love and respect. Because we also love and respect those who are being hurt directly by that kinfolk and have a responsibility of addressing that. It's not vilifying, it's not calling the person a demon, it's not calling the person devil, it's not calling the person subhuman or less than or vile or anything else. Respect that child of God. God is working through that being, one way or another. Respect. And if one is claiming to be righteous, love. That don't mean agree. That don't mean acquiesce. Love. And when able, teach, share, listen, heal, feed. So that's speaking somewhat to the point, but I'm trying to think of how to articulate this otherwise. I've addressed this through the years of just like, and I've framed it oftentimes in the context of being mixed and having like kinfolk who have my back that I don't even know, but I know like they know something about me, and that like they might be affiliated with kinfolk I'm affiliated with, and they've got like a mission, their purpose. Particularly, they might be a young soldier, and they're on guard for me that I don't even know, and they're not allowed to let me know because that's how things are at the moment. And the thing about it, again, the nature of what we do with the Sona Ashram and additionally is we have multitudes of allegiances that we don't even solicit explicitly, directly, that we don't even talk about. But kinfolk have our back in a nasty, beautiful way. And the challenging thing about it is a lot of these kinfolk have a history of being at each other. And so very often, historically, through the years, like these kinfolk who have our back have it with the intention of protecting us against other kinfolk who have our back. And it's a very complex kind of phenomena, and this is facts. And it's a challenging thing because eventually kinfolk, that's in some ways kinfolk recognize that and be like, oh wait, hold up. If this was somebody else, we would have to protect our folk from that other entity. But the fact is, it's a Sona Ashram. It's the realm of Peter's ilk. So even though it's kinfolk we perceive as enemies, we recognize they're not a threat to the ilk of Peter, because the ilk of Peter have diplomacy with those kinfolk, and we can't hate on that because we also know that Peter and his ilk is down with us too, and it's proven through the years. Very strong trust in that. By the grace of the Most High, give thanks and praise. So, then there's some kinfolk who don't care. I won't get into the complexities, but my point is this, if I can get to that. I'm not tired because, again, I'm still dealing with the coffee. But maybe that doesn't have necessarily a necessary effect on the concentration integrity, but work on it. What I'm saying is that somebody might seem to be walking down the street and it look like they might, they might be menacing, have menacing intentions, and don't even say, I might say something, and they might not say nothing to me, and I might perceive some fear, like Abraham with his visitors not eating the food. Abraham Avinu. However, before I jump to conclusions and be like, oh, who's this dude? Why? Well, you can't say nothing, da da da, and starting static. He might be a soldier who's tasked to protect I and to do it indiscreetly and not reveal that he has any notion of who I am, because eyes are on us. And in like strict orders, don't say hi to him, don't say nothing. If he says something, don't get at him, or maybe get at him or whatever else. He's not going to do anything to you, but just keep on. That sounds maybe crazy. It sounds like far-fetched. These are the conditions we live in. That's somewhat of an example I'm talking about, but even when kinfolk lie, even when kinfolk are betraying, even when kinfolk do something shady, to recognize that whatever the kinfolk are doing, whatever the kinfolk are on, there is a higher power involved. And you can say they're under the influence of the devil, but even in being under the influence of the devil, it is a test from God to discern and prompt the individual to respond in a proper way, to further in the trot of righteousness, to find that solution without anger, without violence or hostility, with patience, with strength. I think that's going to be the best I'm going to articulate it at this moment. There's something else. There was an adage that I tried to think about, to remember to share with kinfolk today. Didn't do it. I was focusing on other things. Ain't no excuses. It's just what it is. This is the adage. People talk about don't bite the hand that feeds you. Very subjugating proclamation. Here's another way of flipping the script. Don't feed the hand that bites you. What up? Flying squirrel just flew through. Don't feed the hand that bites you. Specifically pointing to the things that we find disagreeable and how we contribute and how we feed off those things we find disagreeable. And how the solution is being further independent and autonomous, distant, away from those things that we find disagreeable, and being honest about that. And when we do that, as difficult as it is, we find greater peace within ourselves. Ain't no perfection per se. Ain't no purity per se. But there is peace. There is path. One thing I'm working on, I've already said it before, is making this place increasingly hospitable amidst even recent visitations. Making it comfortable for people to gather and build with each other as is. So that's what we got to share this moment. This joint probably will blank out at any second, and if it blanks out without stopping before, it's going to erase the whole thing. So we're going to be preemptive. And we give all thanks and praise to the Most High Elohim. Blessed love and peace in Rastafari.